UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura, full card predictions. I won't make this one too long. Last week was really a great pay per view. This week, a lot of fights that aren't necessarily super high level, but nonetheless, let's just get into it. Bottom of the card, make my way up to the top as always. Chad and Helliger versus Charlampos Gregoriou. I'm going to go with Chad and Helliger here. The reason is because Chad has fought the higher level competition, and I know he's lost a lot. I know he has some grappling like holes in his game. I understand that, but on the side of Cheryl Lampos Gregoriou, he just hasn't fought. The only decent fighter he's fought so far is C-Rod, and C-Rod finished him in round three. Since then, I've watched some of his fights. I watched this fight against a two and I think he's 2-6 or 2-7 now. Joey Crisostomo, he didn't necessarily look that great in that fight, to be honest. You should be dominating a 2-6 opponent, making it look easy in round one. And the fact that he was landing some shots on Gregoriou, it's like that shouldn't be happening, in my opinion, against an opponent with a negative record. Chris Dissanel beat him, but again, Chris Dissanel 6-7 now, and then Cameron Smotherman knocked him out in the first round. So him beating all these guys doesn't prove to me that he's UFC caliber. Plus, he's 31 years old. I know he's about to be 32. I understand you're going to say, well, Chad's 37. I get Chad's 37, but I don't. I mean, Charles Lampos has fought nobody of note. At the very least, you could say that Chad's fought a decent level of competition. I mean, Brady, he stands in the UFC now. Muin Gafarov, Jesse Strader, all right, not great, but his losses, Alatong Haley and Jose Johnson. I think they both have a shot at beating Charles Lampos as well. So I'm going with Chad and Helliger. I think if he keeps this fight on the feet, and when have we seen Charles Lampos just dominate people with the grappling? When have we seen him dominate anyone good in the grappling department? I think on the feet, Chad should probably win over three. And that's the pick for me. I'm going to say Chad and Helliger wins a decision. Obviously, he has a grappling holes in his game, but he's never been knocked out. I know quite a lot of people, I think, are picking Charles Lampos by knockout. Yeah, 72% of people. I guess they don't know that Chad's never been knocked out before, so they think it's going to happen for the first time. Not impossible. I mean, not impossible at all. Like, he could knock out Chad, but Chad's shown good durability. Even when he's rocked in fights, he stayed safe and weathered the storm. I think he could do the same here. He's plus 140. To start off the night, I'll take the underdog. Next, Corey McKenna versus Jacqueline Amarim. Um, this is one where I'm like, I've been torn all week. Um, just because the line swayed so heavily in favor of McKenna, I'm going to go the opposite side. I'm going to go with Amarim here. If it was even odds, maybe I'd take McKenna just, because I feel like McKenna, you could say she's more well rounded, but is she really? She has a 58-inch reach. Her striking's not that great. I don't think you can say she has a clear striking edge here. I know she's training at a Team Alpha Male, which is a very good gym, especially for wrestling. But I like from her striking, I haven't been impressed much. She was honestly getting outstruck by Cheyenne Blismus. She was getting outstruck by Cheyenne Blismus, but she was getting the takedowns and she was getting her wrestling going. But I don't know if she's going to have success wrestling against Amor. I mean, she can take down Amorim here, Amarim, but is she going to succeed at out grappling or keeping her on the mat without getting swept or getting put in any dangerous positions or submissions, for example? Because Amarim is a super high level grappler, a better grappler than the side of McKenna. So I think if the fight hits the mat, Amarim is dangerous. I don't like how she pulls guard sometimes. Um, but at the very least, I know that she is a dominant grappler. I know that if she does get on top, especially in a mount, she pretty much wins the round. She can stay there for a majority of the round. And I like that for Amarim. I think her grappling is much more dominant than McKenna. I just haven't seen too much on McKenna. I mean, the Elise, I know, you can talk about the Sam Hughes fight, how she gassed out after one round and rounds 2 and 3 were bad. I understand rounds 2 and 3 were bad, but was it really that bad for Amarim? I mean, it was her debut. I know she lost. I know it wasn't a good look. Sam Hughes just, stayed safe in the guard of Amarim, but Corey McKenna, if you look at her on the other hand, lost to Elise Reed by split. I mean, it's not a good loss at all. Elise Reed's not a great fighter. Beat Miranda Granger, Cheyenne Blismus, as I mentioned, who wasn't looking bad on the feet against her. Kay Hansen had her in a few vulnerable positions, took her down a few times, I think twice. So I know Corey McKenna is really young, but 58 injuries to 68. Jacqueline's an underdog as well, plus 150. I mean, not I'm not just saying the reach advantage, but I don't think you can say that McKenna has a clear edge on the feet if Amarim has a 10-inch reach advantage, and neither are necessarily fantastic. And the grappling edge, I got to give to Amarim. So I'm going to pick her to win here. Another one where I'm not super confident, but I feel like way too many people are on the side of McKenna over Amarim here. I guess the basis of it is they think she's more well rounded, or they think she can. I don't know if they're thinking she's just going to take down Amarim and control her. I think that's going to be tough to do, though. So I am going to go with Jacqueline Amarim here to get it done. Next up, we have Thiago Moises versus Mitch Ramirez. I'm going with Thiago Moises. Um, Moises will probably submit Mitch Ramirez here. Mitch Ramirez is a solid striker. Not a bad striker, but I do think Moises will eventually get to the back, get him down, get to the back, and submit him. Moises was scheduled to fight Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell has fought a lot of really tough guys in the UFC. He's had a tough road. I know Riddell's been finished a few times, but he did fight, I think, Jalen Turner, Fiziev. He's fought a lot of good guys, and that's who Moises was scheduled to fight. And I think with Moises, if you don't bully him early, kind of like Joel Alvarez did, or kind of like Benoit Saint Denis did, if you're not one of those guys who's just going to put the pressure on him and just kind of make him quit early, I feel like he can weather the storm and eventually take over and find a submission or be able to beat you that way. And I think his striking fundamentally is solid enough to stay safe against Mitch Ramirez. Ramirez is good. I mean, he did find a win 2 months ago against Tavares. That wasn't a KO, though. That was Tavares stayed on his feet. He was arguing the stoppage with the ref. I mean, I guess it's not again, it's another one where it's not impossible for Mitch Ramirez to catch Moises early, but more often than not, I'm going to take the guy that I know has better grappling. Trading with the fighting nerds now, I think that's a good gym change. Caio Borralho, I think Gene Silva fights there, so there's a few like solid fighters that he's can be training with, and I think that'll help his overall game. Probably getting more personalized training compared to ATT, where he's training with a bunch of high level guys, but not as much personalized training. So I think that'll help Moises as well. I'm going to pick him to win here against Mitch Ramirez. Ramirez lost his Contender Series fight. He arguably shouldn't be in the UFC right now. I know Carlos Prates. I know what he just did to Trevin Giles, knocked him out brutally. So I understand why they're giving Ramirez another shot. It is short notice. I get it, but I'm going to go with Thiago Moises to get this one done. He's been training for the fight. Next up, we have Josh Kulibau versus Danny Silva. Silva missed weight, 148 and a half he weighed in at, so he's over the limit by 2.5 pounds. Um, I was thinking about picking him. This whole card, it's like flip a coin on most of these because it could go either way. This one's kind of similar. I picked two out of three underdogs to start the night. I was thinking about picking an underdog here in Silva. I do think Silva keeps it close, but I think Kulibau wins 29-28. I think it's a close decision win for Kulibau. The reason I say that is because Danny Silva in the fight against Angel Pacheco on the Contender Series, he threw so much volume and he landed so much. I think he landed like 100 or 200 some strikes. He landed so many significant strikes. Those guys went to war and they were throwing, heat at each other. They were throwing as much as they could to land. And Danny Silva was landing a lot of great shots on Angel Pacheco, but he couldn't get him out of there. Not that it's like, I mean, both guys were just, had a great fight, but the fact that Danny Silva coming in here against Kulibau, I've seen some people picking him. I know why people are picking him. He is a dog. Like, he really is a solid fighter. But Kulibau, he's been fighting the much better guys. Charles Jourdain went to a split against him, or went to a draw against him. Beat Shailander and Becky, beat Sungwoo Choi, rocked him a few times. Um, and then the Melsik Bagdasaryan fight wasn't looking too good in the Melsik Bagdasaryan fight until he got to the back and submitted him, but still got the win there. And then he lost to Lerone Murphy. All in all, I think Kulibau's been fighting a really super high level of competition. Not that Danny Silva's been fighting like bums or anything. I mean, he's been, I mean, he hasn't been fighting great guys, but he's fighting, I guess you could say decent regional competition. But I just think Bell has been fighting the better guys. I think Silva's game, for one, I don't like his grappling. In the one fight he lost, it was because he got out wrestled, out grappled a little bit. I don't know. I do expect Bell to try to mix in the grappling a little bit here, especially if he's getting pressured, especially if Silva's starting to change the pace of the fight or change how the fight's playing out. I think Bell will attempt to mix things up and grapple a little bit here, which probably will help him. But even on the feet, I think Koulibaly, fast guy, good hands. I think Koulibaly could find the chin of Silva. I don't know if he's going to hurt him. Silva just seems like he can walk through punishment, as he did on the Contender Series. Took a lot of damage there and just kept walking. Didn't quit. Just kept walking forward, landing more. But I think Koulibaly has better footwork than a guy like Angel Pacheco. I think Koulibaly will be. I know it's a small cage, so maybe Danny Silva, especially that he missed weight, maybe Danny Silva is able to walk him down and just land big shots on him and hurt him. But I think Koulibaly will be circling a lot, will be switching stances, will make it hard for Silva to land on him. And even if Silva does land on him, he'll probably have to take one to give one. As I said, it could be a close fight. It's another one where the line is relatively close for a reason. I could see Danny Silva winning a really hard fought decision, but I could also see Koulibaly being the veteran here and showing Danny Silva, a guy who hasn't had any UFC experience, kind of showing him the ropes, so to speak, and winning a competitive fight. I'll say 29-28. Koulibaly gets it done. Moving along, we have Joffel Filo and Ode Osborne. Another one I won't spend too much time on. I think on the feet, Osborne has a shot here. On the mat, I think he's not as good of a grappler, and that's pretty obvious. Filo should win this fight, and he should win it by sub. He does have very good grappling. He beat Daniel Barres, submitted him, lost to Muhammad Makayev. The Muhammad Makayev fight, though, if you guys don't remember, he should have. Well, I mean, if it was anyone besides Muhammad Makayev in that knee bar, they probably would tap to that. That was a filthy knee bar by Filo. I don't know how Makayev didn't tap. And even if Muhammad Makayev did tap to that, I don't think anyone would really blame him because that was absolutely. I don't know any other word to say, but just filthy from Filo. And I think on the mat here, I think he'll just be a step ahead of Osborne. Osborne has been out grappled in fights before, most recently the Asu Almabayev fight. But even in other fights, he's been taken down. The Brian Kelleher fight, he got submitted in round one with the guillotine, got taken down before that by Kelleher. I just think that Jafel Filo will have the grappling to take down Osborne and beat him. So I am going to go with Jafel Filo. Next, Josiane Nunes versus Chelsea Chandler. Chandler missed weight. Um, Not too much of a surprise there. Both of these women were 145ers moving down to 135, so a 1 pound weight miss from Chelsea Chandler. She's going to be the much bigger girl anyway. Even without the weight miss, she was going to be much bigger, much stronger than Nunes, I would imagine. Maybe not stronger, but just much bigger and probably much more heavy on top as a grappler. And Chelsea Chandler does get on top of Nunes. I think she'll definitely be able to do work there. Nunes, she got taken down 3 times in the Ramona Pasquale fight. Ramona Pasquale sucks. So does Chandler, to be fair. I mean, the Norma Dumont fight was one of the worst looks I could have ever seen from her. It's just awful. I mean, she turned and ran. She turned her back. And when I say turned around, I mean she turned and ran face first into the opposite side of the cage. And I'm looking at that like, what? I've never seen anything like that. I've watched a lot of fights. I've never seen anyone turn around and run into the opposite side of this other side of the cage, run face first into it, and just completely. I've seen people run away from their opponent, but never what Chelsea Chandler did. Regardless of how bad she looked in her last fight, because she did look terrible, I think this is actually a winnable fight. I think this is like she could beat Josiane Nunes. I mean, who has Nunes' spot? Zara Farn, Ramona Pasquale, who took her down, Bea Malecki, and then a bunch of scrubs on the regional scene. You could say the same about Chandler, but at least she got that experience fighting Norma Dumont. I think she knows against Nunes here, she's going to have the size advantage. She needs to take her down because if it stays on the feet, it's probably going to be Nunes all day. But if it hits the mat, Chandler should. I do think Chandler probably can get her to the ground. So I'll go with Chandler. She is an underdog. So that makes two underdog women's picks I've had so far. Another one where it's not a good fight. So I'm just going to, might as well pick the dog. Mike Davis, Natan Levy. What do you want me to say here? Minus 500 for Mike Davis. He's better everywhere than Natan Levy. Natan Levy has beaten some of the worst guys, if I'm being honest, on the roster. Gennaro Valdez beat him by decision. Beat Mike Breeden, faced some adversity in round 3 because he got tired as well. Just not a good look. Really not a good look. I don't think Levy's great. Rafa Garcia lost to him. Yeah, so he has 2 wins in the UFC, both against low-level guys. Mike Davis is very good. For those that got his opening line, I think opening he was like minus 230 or minus 250. If you got on that line or even in a parlay, whatever, congratulations, you beat the line. Because Mike Davis is the far better, far superior fighter. Natan Levy's not good. He really isn't. Mike Davis, on the other hand, has fought actually a higher level of competition as well. Gilbert Burns, first fight in the UFC, up a weight class. I don't even know if that was up a weight class, but he lost to Gilbert Burns regardless. Submitted. Natan Levy would get submitted by Burns as well. Beat Thomas Gifford, knocked him out, and then Mason Jones and Slava Claus beat both of them. Mason Jones and Slava Claus are two guys that are also better than Natan Levy. So I won't go too much into this. Mike Davis, he's a much better fighter than Natan Levy. I keep saying it over and over, but it's true. Haven't been impressed with Levy's game watching him. And for Mike Davis, he did take the path to least resistance against Slava, took him down, out wrestled him. Mason Jones fight was a really good fight. He showed a lot of great striking in that fight, and I think he'll be able to beat not Mike Davis, beat Natan Levy. I'll say decision, though. I'll say it'll probably go the distance, but Davis will be the one that lands more and clearly wins the fight. GM3, Gerald Mearshart versus Brian Barberena. Just gets worse and worse, doesn't it? Why is Brian Barberena? He's at 185 now. Don't really understand that. He wasn't really a huge welterweight to begin with. Now he's moving up in weight. Not that he's moving. He already did move up. He fought once against Murdov at 185. Now he's fighting against Mearshart at 185. Doesn't make sense to me. I mean, he could knock out Mearshart in one punch because that's just Gerald Mearshart for you. He's the most inconsistent guy. So he could beat a Bruno Silva and a Murdov one day and then lose to Barberena the next. So you never really know, especially at chalk. Like, do I really want to trust Gerald Mearshart at chalked odds, at juiced odds? Not really. So as far as a bet, I mean, a bet on Barberena is probably the better side because it's plus 200. But I'm gonna pick Mearshart. Mearshart does have the grappling edge. Barberena gets taken down in every single fight. I know Mearshart's not a really good wrestler at all, but Barberena he gets taken down over and over by everybody. He gets taken down by everybody. He gets out grappled by a lot of guys. If he could leave his neck out in a scramble, maybe late in the fight against Mearshart. Should I call Mearshart round 3 because that's how he seems to always get it done? I guess I will. Gerald Mearshart to win in round 3 is what I'll say. Both guys are tired. Maybe Mearshart shoots like a sloppy takedown or something. I don't even know how I see this fight playing out. I just see Mearshart somehow getting it done, unless he gets chinned early by Barberena, because Barberena does throw heavy. But outside of him throwing heavy, I do think Mearshart is the better fighter, more well-rounded as well. Mearshart striking, it's not great, but I feel like people think it's just awful when in reality, unless he's fighting guys that could, like I said, knock him out in the first round. His striking, against Bruno Silva, he dropped Bruno Silva. So just to put that into perspective, I'll take Mearshart, but not the most confident. Penny Kianzad, Macy Chasson. Oh man, just gets worse and worse. I keep going up the card, and I'm gonna pick Macy Chasson. She beat her once. Not that a rematch goes the same way, and never really goes the same way as the first fight. I think Macy Chasson does have the grappling upside here. I've seen Penny Kianzad give up takedowns in multiple fights, and also her wins have not really aged well. Macy Chasson, she did win a split against Norma Dumont, who's proven to be a solid fighter. Irene Aldana, she was arguably on her way to winning that fight. It was 1-1 going into the third. Chasson had her down. think like 2 or 3 minutes left in the fight. Aldana hits her with an up kick right to the liver and finishes the fight. And that was a really crazy finish. I've never really seen something like that before. But if that didn't happen, or even if it landed in a different spot of the stomach, maybe the fight continues. Maybe Chasson wins and fights for the belt. Who knows? Who knows what would have happened there? What would have happened if Macy Chasson got that win? But now she's fighting Pandy Kianzad. Definitely a step down, in my opinion, from Aldana. Lena Landsberg beat her out of her last five. I mean, Ketlin Vieira got dominated in the grappling, in the wrestling, beat a 40-year-old Lena Landsberg, lost to Raquel Pennington, and then her last two wins before that were Alexis Davis and Sajara Eubanks. Yeah, not much else to say for me. I'll take Chasson. Bad fight. C-Rod, Isaac Dolgarian. Now, this is probably one of the best, if not the best fight on the card, in my opinion. Just the one that I'm most excited to watch. C-Rod, Dolgarian. I'm going with Isaac Dolgarian, the Midwest Choppa. His lack of experience does worry me quite a bit. Um, C-Rod has more UFC experience than Dolgarian. Dolgarian's only had one fight in the UFC. However, C-Rod has to take this fight at 145 because he missed weight three separate times at bantamweight, including his last two fights. Missed weight in both of his last two fights against Raul Rosas and Cameron Simon. I'm tired of this guy missing weight. I'm tired of him being a weight bully and trying to miss weight and then beat up on these 18-year-old kids. Isaac Dolgarian's not an 18-year-old kid. I expect Dolgarian to pick him up, slam down C-Rod, and beat his ass on the ground. And I sound a little bit mad because I am, because the guy keeps missing weight against 18, 21-year-old kids. Now he's fighting a guy that's not 18 years old, a guy who will be able to take him down. And we'll see if C-Rod, we'll see how he does against someone his own size. So we'll see how he goes, how it goes for him. The Raul Rosas fight, he got mauled the first. I don't want to say complete. Oh yeah, he got out grappled. He got out grappled round one. He did. He got out grappled round one, and then he came back in rounds two and three and beat Rosas because Rosas got tired. Also beat Cameron Simon, but again he missed weight for that. And Simon, I don't think he's anywhere near the level of wrestler, nowhere near the level of wrestler that Dolgarian is, and he's a different type of fighter. So the last type of fighter that C-Rod fought that's similar to Dolgarian is JSP, Jonathan Pierce. Now, you could say Pierce is more proven because he can go three hard rounds, and he can go 3 rounds and just push a heavy wrestling pace. We haven't seen Dolgarian do that, so that is the worry with Dolgarian. What if he does get tired? What if C-Rod does start to put it on him in rounds 2 and 3 and beat him? So the only worry is his cardio. I think if Dolgarian has good cardio, if he has good cardio, he should win this fight. I really do think that. I think the only way he loses this fight is if his cardio lets him down in 2 and 3. If he gets tired, can't get the takedowns because he's shooting lazy, sloppy takedowns, and C-Rod puts it on him. I think that's the only way he loses. I think in round one he should win. He should win the first round at a very high clip. Rounds 2 and 3 are going to be like he hasn't. He's only been in the first. He's never been out of the first round in any of his fights, but that's because he's dominating guys, taking them down and beating them up on the ground. So I want to see how he looks in rounds 2 and 3 before I trust him like fully. But I do think he's good enough to beat a guy in C-Rod who's just been bullying smaller guys. So I'm going with Isaac Dolgarian to out wrestle C-Rod. Featured fight of the night, we have Kennedy and Zetroku versus Owen St. Preux. -700. I'm going to pick him to win. Kennedy and Zetroku to beat Owen St. Preux. Owen St. Preux, his last fight was a year ago against Felipe Lins. Got finished in round one. Not a good look there. Before that, he fought Shogun, won a split against an old Shogun who was 1 foot out the door. Another one, not a good look. And if you keep going back, it just gets, it gets worse and worse. Tanner Bozer gets finished by him, gets beat by Jamal Hill. No shame in the Jamal Hill loss, but obviously shame in the Tanner Bozer and Felipe Lins losses because those aren't top level guys. And then obviously beat Alonzo Menifield. That was 3.5 years ago, though. Now he's about to be 41 compared to the Kennedy and Zetroku being 31. So 10-year age gap between these two. I'm kind of questioning why the UFC is even making this fight. I guess they want to get Kennedy back in the win column. So Yeah, assuming he doesn't get knocked out here, he should win. Dustin Jacoby beat him in round one. Devin Clark, and then he beat Devin Clark, Kutsalaba, and Carl Roberson, and then lost to Nikolai Negumereanu 2 years ago. Yeah, I think Kennedy and Sechik gets this one done. I think at this point, just a better athlete. He'll be able to find the chin of Ovin St. Preux at some point. Doesn't matter the round, probably early is what I'd imagine. OSP's way past his prime. He looked terrible in the Felipe Lins fight. Even in the Shogun fight, looked bad. So after another year off, I don't think he's going to look good. Give me the minus 700 favorite, Kennedy and Setriku. Co-main event, we have Brian Battle versus Angelusa. I'm going with Brian Battle to beat Angelusa. Angelusa, haven't liked a lot of the visuals I've seen in his past few fights. Reese McKee almost got finished in the third round. I know he was dominating that fight, but what happened in the third round? He almost got finished. Not a good look. Just finished the last like 2-3 minutes of the fight. You don't even have to put your foot on the gas. You don't want those type of visuals where you're almost getting finished in round three by Reese McKee. It's not what I like to see when you're fighting a guy like Brian Battle, who does actually have really good cardio and can push a pace as the rounds go on. AJ Fletcher, another one, round two. He could have, the ref could have stepped in, and I don't think people would complain that much. AJ Fletcher nearly finished Angelusa in that fight, and I honestly don't think it would have been a terrible stoppage. I think it would have been a justified stoppage if the ref stopped the fight in the Angelusa and AJ Fletcher fight in the second round. I don't think that would have been a bad stoppage at all. Lusa was taking a lot of punishment, nearly was out of there. So another one I don't like, lost to Munir Lazez, and then lost to JDM on the Contender Series. We know how good JDM is, so I won't hold that against him. But I will hold some of the other fights against him because I don't think Lusa. Sure, he's good technically and everything, but I think in a certain fight, when you're in like a dog fight against a guy like Brian Battle, I don't think it matters. I think Battle, he's a guy that can find your chin. He's found the chin of multiple guys before. Gabe Green knocked him out in like 13 seconds, beat Takashi Sato with a head kick, um, submitted AJ Fletcher in round two. That was after he lost round one. So I think his grappling is there as well. He definitely has solid grappling. Um, if it gets Lusa down, I think it's dangerous. It's dangerous for Lusa. I just think Brian Battle is the guy. I think he can win in all three areas, meaning I think he can possibly knock out Lusa. I think he can submit Lusa, and I think it is also possible for him to win a decision. Now, obviously, if the fight goes the distance, it might be a little bit, you're kind of thinking like, I don't, But if it is a knockout or a submission, I expect it to be on the side of Battle. I think he has more finishing upside here than Lusa, and I do think he will find. He'll get another win to make it 3 wins in a row. And if Brian Battle does win this fight, I know he lost to Renat Fekretinov a year ago, but that was on short notice, and Renat just wrestled him. I think to beat a guy like Brian Battle, you need to be great in one area, in my opinion. I feel like you have to be either like a really good striker that can outstrike him for 3 rounds, or a really dominating wrestler that can just take him down over and over. I feel like if you're a guy like Lusa, who's just kind of, good in a lot of areas, but not great anywhere, I think that's not good against a guy like Battle. I feel like Battle will exploit the weaknesses of Lusa and find a win here. So I'm going with Brian Battle in the co-main. And we're moving on to the main event. Tai Tuivasa, Marcin Tybura. I'm going with Tai Tuivasa in the main event to beat Marcin Tybura. I know Tuivasa is coming off 3 losses, but those losses are to guys that are higher level. If we're being honest, higher level than Marcin Tybura. Alexander Volkov was the last fight. Volkov dominated Tuivasa. That wasn't a great look for Ty. But before that, Sergey Pavlovich, Cyril Gahn. I mean, Tuivasa landed a bomb on Cyril Gahn. Nearly had him out of there. I mean, I think it was round 3. You guys remember that overhand right from Tuivasa landed, and Gahn was dropped flat on his ass. He was almost, and he recovered quickly. But like Ty hit him so hard he didn't know where he was for a second. That's for sure. And I could definitely see that happening against someone like Marcin Tybura. Tybura's been knocked out 5 times, and if you look through his knockouts, those are against Tom Aspinall in a minute. Tom Aspinall is really good though, so obviously, nothing wrong with that. Did lose to Alexander Volkov by decision. Got finished though in a minute by Augusto Sakai. Got finished by Shamil Abdurakhimov, and got finished by Derek Lewis as far as his UFC career goes. So he's been finishing a few fights. I think Augusto Sakai, Tai Tuivasa actually did fight Augusto Sakai. So that is a They do have a few common opponents, both Tai and Marcin Tybura here. They have a few common opponents. One of them being Volkov, another one being Augusto Sakai. And the Augusto Sakai fight, I know MMA math doesn't really work, but Tuivasa finished him. Um, Tuivasa finished Sakai in round two, whereas Tybura was finished, got knocked out in a minute by Gusto Sakai. So I don't like to do MMA math usually, but I think Tybura, questionable chin. I don't even know if his wrestling, like, I know people are talking about his wrestling, but like, is he really going to be able to take down Ty and submit him? Like, it's not impossible, but I doubt it. I doubt he'll be able to, try to close the distance and do that without taking any massive damage. I know the line's super close, and let me just say this: if Tuivasa loses this fight and retires, just just know I don't I'm of the mind that Tuivasa is planning on continuing his career, planning on winning this fight and making a run back to the title. If he, obviously, I don't think he's going to get there, but I do think he's going to continue his career. If he does decide to retire, then obviously it's a terrible pick because I'm the type of guy that I don't like picking guys that are retiring, but I haven't. I've heard like rumblings around that maybe this is his last fight, but I didn't hear that from Ty himself. Ty didn't. I didn't hear Ty say this is my last fight. I'm calling it quits. So I have to believe that Ty is in this. I have to believe that his head's in the game. I have to believe that he's coming for a knockout, and I'll say he gets the knockout in round one over Marcin Tybura. Now, if you can't knock him out early, Ty should be worried because Marcin Tybura, if you can't knock him out early, you probably will take him down eventually. But I'm going to go with Tai Tuivasa to get it done in the main event. Not a great card. I know I didn't spend as much time on this one as I did on UFC 299, as well as many other cards. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.